Whoa, and we're here. OTB's second live stream, and as the cup says, if I show it to the camera, don't panic. What's the sound like, guys? Sarky buggers, speak up, you say. Evening all, evening Richard, evening Deech. This time with intro, yeah, I'm starting to figure it out. And Andrus says the live stream showed up for 5 days, so you're ready for it. Okay, good stuff. And the sound's okay, brilliant. Guys, I learnt a lot off the last live stream, which was a little bit like pressing the buttons and hope it all worked. And I've been changing a few things around over the week or the last couple of weeks. And a couple of requests were to get this chat window on the main screen, so I've seen that. Donald, you say lighting's better. I'll talk about that in a minute. I've had to fiddle around to get a transparent chat window, but that was great fun figuring out how that worked. And one of the guys in my Facebook group said, you need something just to keep people occupied. You can't just have a static screen. So he said, what you need is alert boxes and everything. So I've set these up. Here, I'm just going to do a test. Whoa, look, fancy. So I've had great fun doing that. What else have I got? Oh yeah, can you see this? I've got myself a little Stream Deck. And I have to say that even though it's technically Windows only, it works fine with Stream Deck UI. I watched a video by Das Geek, who seems to be one of the few people who's tried it in Linux, and it's seamless. And I know somebody's going to say, well, all you need to do is get yourself a programmable keyboard. Yeah, I know that, but it's not as pretty, and it hasn't got little icons, and yeah. So shiny-itis got me, and I thought that'd be okay. Sound okay, image a bit less. Okay, that might be something to do with the lighting, guys. I've gone all out, and I've got, what do they call them, these soft boxes and everything. And after I got them, I realised I don't know what I'm doing with them. So I've been experimenting, putting them around all over the place. So, yeah, we'll get there. So, guys, the lighting's still not right. I realise that. I've spent an hour playing with it, shifting these soft boxes around and playing with the Philips Hue stuff. And I'm not overly happy with it, but at least I've got the lighting to play with now. So it's good. And I can actually see the chat now, and I'm not very good, as you know, at multitasking, but it's coming through. So, hiya Bruce, hiya Himanshu, hiya Maeglin Gondolin Bain. I shouldn't try pronouncing names, I'm dreadful at them. Charlie, Nosy, Darren, Rob, EJ, Street. Whoa, we've got everybody here. And Andrus says, how about a custom keyboard layout on Linux instead of programmable, more expensive keyboards? Yeah, I know. I probably should have done, but I was, I watched the YouTube video and I thought, oh, I want one of them. I was a bit shocked when it was £70, but what the heck. Anyway, what was I going to say? Darren, you mentioned in the chat, which has been running for a while now, how's this 4G internet going? Oh, hold on. David saying, waiting for session to start. Got intro and sound, but no picture on TV screen until I refreshed. Is that normal? What about everybody else? Hold on, let me see if I can pull the lighting down a bit. Bit better? Or a bit worse? Shiny is good. We'll figure it out as we go along. I don't know, David, whether or not you have to refresh. Is everybody else seeing this video without a problem? I know there's a bit of a delay. I think there's about a 20-second delay before I say something and it actually goes over the vid. So Chris is saying, image looks fine to me. Nosy trying out Arctics. If anything, I would go brighter on the front lighting. Okay, let's try it a little bit. It's kind of over here. Better? I'll fiddle with it. So, Darren, you asked me about how this 4G is going, and I've been a bit blown away by it. I'm not surprised that the stream is butter smooth, Nosy, because when I first, if you watch my video, when I first set up this 4G, on a 4G phone with EE, I was struggling to get 2 or 3 megs down and, you know, a meg up. We then had this antenna fitted, and I was getting 30 megs. And I was getting about 25 up. And it's been switched on for about 2 months now, and it just seems to get faster and faster. And I got in today and I did a speed test. 185 down and 85 up on 4G. I've done it a few times, and it does vary a little bit, but 150 meg down seems to be the lowest it's going, and around 45 up seems to be the lowest the up speed's going. So, wow. You know, I know Luke Smith is looking at getting some sort of 4G solution in, and all I can say is for £20 a month, it's more than worth it. Okay, guys, you might know that I'm not the best at planning out these things or planning out any of my videos. I tend to switch on and just go, but I've made a few notes, and I've called this stream Nothing But Questions simply because I've gone out there onto the Facebook groups and various places, and I've said any questions you want me to answer, and I've gathered, I don't know, 6 or 7 questions that I'm going to have a go at answering today. Before we start, though, I thought I'd tell you about something I've been doing in response to a question that I've had myself. You know how, I'm just going to minimize this on the other screen. You know how I've been playing around with tiling window managers and really enjoyed them. I thought to myself this week, do you think after playing with tiling window managers and becoming quite comfortable with them, that you could swap back to a desktop environment and be perfectly happy, no problems? And I thought that I could do it without a second thought. So I tried it for a couple of days, and I was stunned at just how difficult I found it. I found that I missed all my key bindings. I found that I missed the way that tiling window managers handle multiple screens, you know, and allow you to put one workspace on one screen and one workspace on another. So I thought I'd have a little bit of a play. So let me just go to the main screen, and I think, there we go. No, that's not it. It's that I want. Right, so what you should see in front of you is my desktop, and that's actually the Mate desktop. I've played about with it. I've got the workspace applet up here. I'm a little bit disappointed actually that I can't change the background colour to that, and I've shoved the menu over here, but it's Mate. I can't see any of you guys now because I can't see the chat. I'm just going to play with this. So first thing I did with this to try and get this usable for me was I opened up the Mate control panel, and I found that if I was trying to use the super key, the Windows key, to use as part of my key bindings, it was sort of clashing, because on the standard Mate, it seems to be set up to bring down the Mate menu. So if you go into layouts and options, you've got an option there for alt win behavior, and it's set as default to start off with. And you have to change it to hyper is mapped to win. I've no idea why, but then it stops working with the main menu, which is good as far as I'm concerned, and it means that you can set your own key bindings. And that's basically what I did. And what I found was, do you know, all those years of using Mate, apart from setting a key binding for the terminal, I never really bothered. And I've kind of gone through and I've set a range of different key bindings. So now, if I just shut this off, I can hit super enter and it opens up my terminal. If I want to tile that to the left, I can tile it to the left. If I open up another terminal, I can tile that to the top right, and another one. Oops. I have to open one first. There we go. And I have a manually put together master and stack layout. I know it's a bit naff, but you know, it is what it is. I can switch focus. All over the place. I can knock everything off as I've always done. I can go to a maximum and straight down to normal again. And if I want to go to a particular workspace, say I want to send this to workspace 3, I can send it straight away to workspace 3, and I can then follow along, and there we go. Oh, I can also, let me just go back to number 1. I can also play around with shifting it to a different desk. Let me just bring in my other screen here. So if I wanted to move this over to my left-hand screen, I can do that. If I want to move it back, I can do that. One thing that I couldn't do, though, let me just get rid of that little bit. One thing that I couldn't do was I couldn't send it to another workspace and follow along automatically. So at the moment, if I want to send it to 5, that's easy. Or let's send it to 4. I can send it to 4, but then I have to follow along. What I wanted was a way that I could just follow back to 1. Oops, follow back to 1 like that. And I couldn't do it with the standard key bindings. So I thought, okay, perhaps I can use WM control, window manager control commands to actually send my terminal to a specified workplace and then follow along myself. And I tried putting them in here. We'll just open it up again. I can't see any of you at the moment, guys, so I'll come back. So I tried putting it, creating special commands, move window to workspace 5 and follow along, etc., etc. And it just didn't work having multiple window manager controls there. So what I've done is I created a little script called move. And each time we run that script, I give it an option. So move 5 moves a window to workspace 5 and I follow after it. Move 2 moves the window to workspace 2 and I follow after it. And it seems to work like a treat. As you know, I don't consider myself much of a scripter, but for those who watched my video on notifications and doing key bindings for notifications, one of the scripts that I used for Dunst, I remember it had this script in it where you kind of said volume up, volume down, volume mute, and it did the right thing. So I sort of did a copy and paste and adapted it for this script I've written, which is called move. And let me just increase the size of this. And this is it, basically. So, simple script. It's on my GitLab if any of you are interested. And it uses a couple of WM control commands. The first command is to send the active window to a specified workspace, and the next command is to follow on to that specified workplace space. And depending what the option is that I give the script, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's basically what it does. So let's just go over to stream. Oh, helps if I remember to disable my introduction. So guys, that's what I've been playing with this week. So I've got Mate to be almost a manual tiler. So, right, here's your question. My Linux, why bother so much to do tiling things on Mate? If you want to use Mate, then do desktop things. If you need to do the tiling things, just stick to the tilers. Yep, absolutely, and I will just stick to the tilers. I did it because I just wanted to see if I could. It was just an exercise in, I wonder. So, hey, you know, that's the thing about Linux, isn't it? I'm not going to use Mate for tiling, but I remember having a look at Pop! OS, and I didn't give it a glowing review because I didn't like the way it did tiling. And I have to say, I don't like the way Mate does tiling when you set it up. I don't like the fact that you can't set up a different workspace per monitor. I suppose you could if you did a multi-head setup. But other than that, you know, I'm not going to bother. I just wanted to see if it was possible. And yeah, as you say, Drishel, I could just replace the default Mate window manager, Marco, with something like i3, but I'm not going to bother. I'm going to stick with window managers. It was more of a play than anything else. So, what do you think? Life's too short for distro and DE hopping. Yeah, it might be too short for desktop environment hopping, but I'm not so sure it's too short for window manager hopping. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing, and that I kind of answered my own question. I'm not going to stay on Mate. It's always been there because I tend to install the Mate version of Endeavour or Arch or whatever, and I just thought I'd have a play and see if I could do something. Rob's saying you have the same kind of setup with Plasma. Easy with how customizable it is. Yeah. So it was just a play. Right, so guys, I suppose I should get on with this live stream, shouldn't I? I'm looking at the time and we've eaten 18 minutes through my my tendency to ramble. Probably looking at doing hour-ish, an OTB hour. So it's much easier, by the way, looking at the chat on this screen. So I've got a few questions here, my normal planning. And the first question is one I thought I'd quite enjoy answering, and it's how do you stay enthusiastic about an operating system after using it for 16 years? And it's a good question, and we're just about to click over into 17 years as a Linux desktop user. I think, as much as anything else, my enthusiasm is to do with the fact that I'm a bit of a geek. And I like fiddling, and I like getting down and dirty with things, and I like technology. And all the way back 16, 17 years ago, I liked the fact that I could do stuff with Linux that I couldn't really do in a Windows environment. I'm not saying that the enthusiasm has stayed all the way through. There was a time after the first couple of years when I got used to the system and I learnt what I was doing that I had other interests at the time. And, you know, my kids were still quite young and I just used the operating system as a desktop. And I didn't do a huge amount with it. And I think I started to lose a little bit of my enthusiasm. It's not that I switched over, but it became less a hobby and it just became functional. And I do understand those people who say, I just want to use an operating system to get stuff done. Because I know how easy it is to get into that. But probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I started to look at it in more detail and to have a play with it. And I started watching YouTube videos, and it kind of reignited my enthusiasm, which had taken a bit of a hit. It sounds weird, this, but when I was working for the Linux server company, and I was working with DNS servers and web caching servers that were all Linux based, it became a bit work based. But once I moved from that job, I sort of started playing with Linux again. And since starting this channel, I have to say that I've probably learned more about Linux in the last 18 months than I did the previous 15 years, because I've dug deep and forced myself to do things that I'd never done before. I've learned an awful lot more about scripting. I don't consider myself someone who does scripting really, but I certainly understand a lot more about it. I've enjoyed playing with window managers, which I never did before, and just doing playing. It's a play thing as well as a functional thing for me. So my enthusiasm comes from being a fiddler, a tinkerer, and Linux is just a gift that never stops giving. There's always something to explore. So yeah, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'm just doing work at the computer and I don't fiddle at all, but I do enjoy having a tinker and having a little bit of a project to do. What else? Yeah, so my enthusiasm is why I do this channel, and this channel keeps my enthusiasm going. And if I ever lose my enthusiasm for Linux, that'd probably be the end of the channel. But somehow I don't see that happening, because there is always something to look at. And I notice a lot of YouTubers, they seem to get stale after a while, and they stop doing reviews, and they start to move on to, lots of different stuff. But I'm still quite enthusiastic about doing distro reviews, and it's simply because it stops me distro hopping. I can put up VirtualBox and explore a distro myself, and that's my distro hopping bug, really. It comes out that way. So, yeah. So that's how I keep my enthusiasm. I can't even pronounce your name. I'm really sorry. Mestly? How long are you going to stream? I don't know. I'm thinking till about 5 o'clock. We'll see how it goes. Do I have a Discord server? No, I don't. I have enough trouble keeping up with my Facebook group and Reddit, so I think I'd just be pushing it. I could create a Discord server, but I'd hardly ever be on it, so it seems a bit of a waste of time. Right, you need a complete Gem2 install tutorial along with desktop environment install. Well, Serge was on this stream earlier. He's your man. It wouldn't be me. I've installed Gem2 a couple of times, and I'm not intending to do it again. It's a fine distro, but I don't have the patience for a source-based distro. Simple as that. And Matrix. Oh, there's Serge. You did one in French with Adrian. You did do a series with Zeb. Yeah, I watched it. I watched the one with Zeb, Serge. Incredibly interesting. But it did take an awful long time. Right, guys. So what's my first question? Or second question, should I say? I was asked, and these are questions that have come up over the last week or so, but the questions that I've been asked all the time as well. What makes a distro user-friendly? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I don't think there's a defined answer to that, other than it depends on the user. Because what's friendly for one person is not particularly friendly for another person. And I think we need to separate user-friendly from beginner-friendly because they're not exactly the same thing. I think you can probably pick some features or characteristics that makes a distro user-friendly. So across the board, no matter what your level of experience is concerned, a straightforward install, a nice and easy and quick install, repositories that contain lots of packages, so you don't have to kind of go off to GitHub or whatever and compile them from source. And I personally also think that you've got to be quite wary with the 1- and 2-man distros out there if you're quite new to Linux. There's some cracking ones out there. Ferrin is one of them. I've got that in my diary to look at again, his new release. But I do tend to think that if you're just starting out in Linux, you're probably better off going with one of the big names. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, something like that. Interestingly enough, though, that leads on to another question that I was asked by someone in a comment on one of my videos a week or two ago. And I'm not quite sure how to put this into a question, but he said, like you, I'm an experienced Linux user. I've been using it for 20 years or whatever it was. However, my preferred distro is the likes of Ubuntu or Mint. And I seem to get, a lot of flack for that because there's a sense of elitism within the Linux world, and you're not expected to run a distro that's defined as beginner-friendly if you're experienced. And I looked at that and I thought, I can see where you're coming from. There is an element of elitism in the Linux world, and I suppose after you've been using it a while, you're not, or it's not an expectation that you are going to use something like Ubuntu or Mint, but it's not necessarily the case. Your level of experience, you can bring it to bear on any distro. And if you like Mint or Ubuntu, why not? What other people say to you, the elites out there, there's always going to be those out there who think you're doing the wrong thing. Personally, I say just use whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. And I don't think it has much to do with your level of experience. It's just great. It's just about personal preference. What do you like? I happen to like Arch, and it's got nothing to do with my level of experience. There are a few things I like about it. I like the massive package, range of packages there, the AUR, and I happen to think Pacman is a great package manager and really fast. And I have to say, I found it solid, pretty stable. So for me, that's my preference. What are you saying, Andrus? That's a joke when Linus Torvalds still uses Fedora. Absolutely. You don't have to use some, geek or so-called elitist distro just because you're experienced. Use whatever you want. There are loads of good distros out there. I when I think about, what would I consider solid distros? Well, your big ones are all solid, your Debian, your Ubuntu, your Fedora, your OpenSUSE. And then you've got some offshoots, your MX, your Mint. They're solid as well. There are some, perhaps, that aren't quite as developed. And generally speaking, I won't tend to have a look at those. But, yeah. What are you saying, Nosy? Sorry, I've got the chat moving across here. Nosy's saying, I have a question. Whether PyCon development is stalled? Not as far as I'm aware. PyCon PyCom or what it was called before, we all pretty much rely on it in window managers. So I don't think it's stalled, or at least I haven't heard. What you're saying, GK sudo? If it wasn't for the AUR, I'd have to compile the legacy NVIDIA drivers by hand. And Metzley, Linux from scratch. Linux from scratch is not something I've ever tried. And if I'm absolutely honest, I don't think it's one I will be trying either. So, Maeglin, you love Arch as well, but you often end up using Manjaro Unstable to gain time. Interestingly, as you know, I had a bit of a revamp on all my ThinkPads over the last few months, and I decided Compton, that was it, Nosy, it was called Compton, and I installed Arch on them all, but not plain Arch. I did some experiments. I installed Endeavour on some of them, I installed Manjaro on some of them, and plain Arch on others, and the results, no difference. They're all Arch-based system, you know. Did I get your name right? Wow. Metzley, is that right? Douglas Adams fan. No, I am a Douglas Adams fan, Darren. This Don't Panic one is Dad's Army, which was a very old series here in the UK about the Home Guard. Do a live stream installing Gentoo, says Panagiotis. Not a chance, sorry. You can't get over how good the quality is, picture and sound. Do you know, I'm putting it down to this stupidly fast internet that I seem to be getting over 4G. I'm pretty much blown away. I did watch the last one back, and the stream, if I pull up the stream, it hasn't really changed. It just says excellent connection. So I almost followed the advice when I was thinking about how to get internet in this cabin, about running an Ethernet cable from the house all the way down the garden and into here. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I get 30 meg down and about 3 up from the house connection coming over the standard broadband connection over the phone line. So I'm glad I did this. Much better. Right. Where are we up to? You are up to 84. Do you know, I am 87 now. I try not to watch this screen because it's funny. When you see, I should be going through these questions and I'm just waffling on. Well, I've got so used to recording videos now that I don't feel nervous when I'm recording. But I still feel a little bit, butterflies in the stomach when I'm about to hit that go the stream button. I'm sure I'll get used to it, but hey ho. Right, 92 now. Thanks, Darren. Yeah, and Chris C, you're on EE and you're impressed with their speeds. I didn't have much of a choice here in the village in Lancashire where I'm at. I'm actually on 3 with my standard phone. But you basically, EE is the only one where you get any sort of 3G signal, never mind 4G signal. So for £100, that little antenna on the side of what is a glorified shed has just blown me away. Right, let's get on. Let's get on. Tips for new users based on my experience. Oh my goodness. Tips for new users. Yeah, here's one. Don't expect Linux to be Windows. Most of the criticisms I see of Linux from new users start on the basis of, I can do this in Windows or Mac by doing X, Y, Z. Why can't I do that in Linux? Well, you feel like being sarcastic and saying, yeah, because we've got a better way of doing it. But let's just forget that for the minute. This is a completely different operating system. Linux is not Windows, and you will have to relearn a lot of what's probably hardwired through years of doing Windows at school and all the rest of it. My tip is stick with it. because if you stick with it, it will soon become the norm. And you may find some things difficult, but if you find them difficult, that's great, because you'll figure them out in the end. And once you've figured them out, your knowledge of how to use Linux will just grow and grow and grow. And you'll get to the point where something goes wrong or you can't do something, a little bit like, what I showed you with my Mate desktop there, that I couldn't get a terminal window to go to a specific desktop and then follow it. And it's like, it becomes an exercise like, right, okay, I can't do that. There must be some way, because there is always a way. And have an inquiring mind and dig and find a way if it's not doing what it's doing for you. But the biggest thing is, don't expect it to be like Windows, and be patient. When I moved across to window managers, I don't know if anybody saw that my first video on window managers, I won't let my coffee go cold, where I looked at i3, and I came away from there and I said, I'm not sure I'm going to get to grips with these key bindings. I'm really not. Well, look at me 8 or 9 months down the road. I go back to a desktop environment and I'm struggling because my key bindings aren't working in Mate. I'm struggling because I can't throw my windows from workspace to workspace and from screen to screen, because I've become so used to it. So give yourself time to acclimatise. And if you give yourself time to acclimatise, I think you'll start to appreciate the benefits that you can get from Linux. You do need to have a certain mindset, though. I've said this right from the word go, and I think Linux does attract people like many of us who are tinkerers. Not everybody, but, a lot of us are tinkerers, and we like the fact that we can get under the surface. Right, so what have we got here? I've got this chat going past. I must admit it, it's a lot better than on the main screen, but I'm just seeing what it is. Oh, we're talking about games. You found games with Linux work best for the most part with Steam. Using Proton 2 in Steam works wonders too. I always feel a little bit in the dark when people talk about Linux gaming, because I've never gamed. I have 3 sons who are PC gamers, and I set them up initially on Linux playing World of Warcraft back in the day. But they played it, I didn't. And I think it's like everything. We all have our own particular interests, and gaming has never been one of mine. I don't even like board games. It just doesn't appeal to me. And even if I started to get the bug, I haven't got the time, and then that would really annoy me, to be honest. What do you say, Bruce? Adam says, I've become a little tired of window managers like i3, etc. I'm now using Fedora and Calculate. Okay. And Bruce says, if OTB can do it, you can too. I'd agree, absolutely. It's just my mindset. Right, let's go back to the questions, as I see we're getting to 20 to 5. Oh, right, okay. Here's another one. OTB, what would be your ultimate window manager or desktop environment? I don't know the answer to this. And I don't know the answer to this because I probably haven't come across it yet. I've liked a lot of the things that I've seen. They've all got little niggles that, aren't perfect. But I'm constantly surprised. So if I was to say what would be my perfect window manager at the moment, it's head-to-head, I think, between Qtile and DWM. I'd say at the moment. I've been really impressed with Qtile. So I'm really enjoying both of them, and DWM is as solid as a rock. They've all got little irritations. The thing that irritates me about DWM is I cannot get the color status patch to work properly. I can apply it, but I cannot change more than 2 or 3 colors on my bar without it grinding the system to a halt. And I've tried just applying that as a single patch, and it still does the same. I've tried the other patches. It's status 2D. Couldn't get that working at all. So I'm using coloured emojis. So that's a minor irritation, but that's the only thing. Everything else seems to work well. In terms of desktop environments, well, it's been Mate, simply because it was GNOME 2, and I just transitioned across to Mate, and I haven't seen a real reason to move. I'm quite impressed with Plasma, just how light it runs these days. I could live in that, not a problem. But XFCE has probably always been my next choice for a desktop environment. When we moved over to GNOME 3, I moved over to XFCE after trying GNOME 3 for a month or 2. So, yeah, it's not there yet. Right. Where are we up to? So we're having a conversation here about all sorts of gaming, and is it possible to run Linux on a very old iPad? Stephen Essenine. Hope I've got that right. I don't know, Stephen. I really don't know. Never tried it. So, yeah, don't know. Okay, so let me cross off some of these. How do I stay enthusiastic? What makes a distro user-friendly? Can an experienced Linux user use a beginner distro if there's such a thing? My ultimate window manager. Tips for new users based on my experience. Right, here's another one, and this will be a bit of a show. One of the guys in my Facebook group, which is a really friendly group. If you're on this stream, come and join us if you're not already on it. I don't like Facebook very much, but I like our group, so that works. I said perhaps you could kind of do a run-through of how you set up XR&R for your window managers. Yeah, I'm more than happy to. I'll just very quickly run through what I do. I did initially start by putting the XR&R commands in a startup script that was linked to window manager configurations. What I was finding was that XR&R was running too late, and I had to play around with all sorts of sleep commands because it was starting up, and it would mess up my wallpaper because you'd have your wallpaper and it'd all be in 4 parts, and I just couldn't get something that suited me and seemed to work well. So what I use now, let me just make sure I've got that intro off and move over to my desk again. So what I do now, let me just bring up that, is really simply, I use AR&R, which is great. And it doesn't matter whether you're on a window manager or whether you're on a desktop environment. I tend to use this for setting everything up. And, you just set which one is your primary and set the resolution there and the same thing there. And you drag them about however you want. And then you click the tick. And if you want to save a file with that configuration on, which is really useful, you simply save it. And so you save basically a bash script, and I save that bash script to my home directory. What I then do, and let me just make this a little bit bigger. There we go. I move the script to USR share, just out of the way, basically. Oops, and it would help if I could type correctly. I've got the microphone in the way. That's my excuse. So and cat XR and can't remember what I've called it. Maybe light. There we are. I call it light DM XR and RSH. And as you'll see there, it's just a bash script with an XR and R command in. So I've stuffed that over in USR share, and basically I just make it executable, you know, chmod plus X, simple as that. Okay, so let me just clear that. If we then go to etc lightdm, and I'll open up the configuration file. There is a section in the configuration file for lightdm called seat, or say it, however you want to pronounce it. And there's an option here for display setup script. And I just point that to USR share lightdm xrnr.sh, which is obviously that script I've just put there. Now what that means is that every time lightdm starts up, it runs that script. After the X server has started, but before I actually log into a particular environment. That means that everything is set up from the word go, irrespective of what desktop environment or window manager I'm using. Now, I've only tried this on Arch, and it's working well. I've seen a few people have said that they've had more problems when they've been using it on a Debian system or an Ubuntu system. I couldn't attest to that. I can only say it's worked really well for me. What else? Oh yeah. So I have all that set up. What I also do, I have a startup script. So let me increase the size of this again. And if I do cat, I don't know. I've got one startup script in my home directory called .qtstart. And this is just a copy of the standard, you know, xinitrc script. I'm not entirely sure what all this stuff at the front does, and I've just left it as is, and it seems to work. And I simply have start PyCom, so that's for my compositing, hook it up to Polkit authentication. I'm using the Mate Polkit because that's already installed. I'm running Nitrogen to put my wallpaper in. I've just commented that out. That's for DWM, the DWM bar. I've setting up my keyboard, so it's the GB layout. I'm starting Dunce notifications there. I'm opening the Stream Deck UI at the moment, so I can use this little Stream Deck thingy-majig. And then I'm putting an exec line in there to start Qtile. Okay, so that's my startup script. And what I do is I go to where lightdm looks for its desktop files to start desktop environments and window managers, which I think is cd usr share x sessions, and you'll see all of the bits and pieces that I have actually on this desktop. So if I open up cat Qtile, these are installed automatically when I install Qtile in Arch. And what I basically do is I modify the exec line, and I've changed that over to, rather than just saying Qtile, to homesteve.qtstart, so my startup script. And it seems to work pretty well, and it's starting everything up at the right time. The only other thing that I found that was quite useful, I clearly have my own scripts in a folder called DWM scripts, and also in my bin folder, and I was finding that setting them up in my bashrc file, it wasn't exporting the script, my path basically, until I'd opened a terminal. So I export everything now in .profile, and I've just got one line there. And that does everything the minute I'm logged in. So that's pretty much it. So, yeah, that's it, guys. That's how I do my XR and R stuff. So, where are we? I didn't even see screen tearing. Laptop does something. It freezes hell there. Right, you're off having your own thing. So, yeah. So that's how I do all my light DM and everything. Last question really from me before I throw it over probably to the chat to ask me questions for the last 5 or 10 minutes is the most common question I get asked is, OTB or Steve or whatever you call me, can you do a review of XYZ distro? Well, what I do when somebody asks me that is I make a note of it and I have a long running list, and I will get to it. I'll be honest, I will get to it not necessarily in the order it comes on the list, but in the order that I'm interested in the distro. But I will get to it. And if you make a request for me to look at something specific, with the exception of source-based distros, because I'm not the person to show you them. I don't know anything about source-based distros. If you watch me install Gentoo, it would be a mess because I don't know what I'm doing. And I'd have to do an awful lot of work before I did it to figure it out. So, yeah. But if you want me to review something in particular, give me a shout in the comments and I will get to it. Right, guys, that was all I was actually going to talk about today. So over to you for the last 10 minutes or so. And I think John Miller's asked one already. The best distro for little kids. Back in the day when my little kids were little kids, I had really old hardware. And I'd bought bits and pieces of stuff to put 3 desktop computers for them. It's 3 very underpowered, very old desktop computers with second-hand gear. And I have to say, they all had Slackware on them. And it worked wonderfully. Would I necessarily say you should go with that? No, go with one of these days, with one of the big names. Go with Ubuntu, go with Mint. Or Nosy, you're saying Linux Lite. I've never looked at that. Maybe I will. Rob, I have a question at Old Tech. Where did you get your Sons of Arthritis t-shirt you often wear? That's a good one. I'm trying to think. I tend to get my t-shirts one of 2 places. The main one being somewhere like Spreadshirt UK. Thank you very much, Beautifo. It looks like I've got a super chat there. Appreciate it. Gentoo, please. Oh, you're going to force me into it, aren't you? So it's either going to be from Spreadshirt or, you know, on Facebook when you suddenly get adverts coming up saying you can have this particular shirt. It might have been on there, but I'm pretty sure it was Spreadshirt that I got the t-shirt from. What's under the hat, Saki Bugger? Very little. And last time I took it off to do a video with it, one of the first comments I got was, that's far too shiny, it's reflecting, can you put your hat back on? And I don't shave my head simply because I'm interested in having that look. I shave my head because I really have nothing on top and I just have stuff on the back and sides. So I shave my head once a week just to keep it neat. So, you're using Manjaro. Slackware? I thought that was dead 100 years ago. How dare you, John? How dare you? The longest serving, if you like, Linux distro about. And if you haven't tried Slackware, you really need to do it. You really need to do it. It's a great distro. It's very simple. You'll have to get down and dirty with the config files. Installation is easy and it's as solid as a rock. I'm just waiting for the next stable edition to come back. Charlie Tyrran, why is Gentoo a taboo one? it's not so much a taboo. It's more the fact that I have pretty conservative hardware here. I have my little Intel NUC, and I have my ThinkPads. And the truth of the matter is, compiling it would take forever. Compiling it really would take forever. Maybe I should look at it. Maybe I should give it a go and make all the mistakes that I'm sure I'll make. Give you a laugh if nothing else. Deech, have you ever read Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency? No, I haven't, mate. Is it worth a read? Hrishbar Rajput, try Elementary OS. Elementary. It was very Mac-like, I seem to remember. I did a review of it some time ago. Wasn't my thing, but it seemed very smooth. Nosy said you've had Fedora with Wayland. You had issues with Windows resizing and random freezes. I've not tried Wayland yet. I've only used X. I think the main thing with Wayland is GNOME, isn't it? And GNOME is not a desktop environment that I will tend to install at the moment. Maybe I should have another look at it, because I'm thinking perhaps I've been a little unfair to it. Can so many people who love it be wrong? I don't know, but yeah, I'll get back to it. Have you tried Nutix Linux? No, and I've never even heard of it. Never even heard of it. Emerge at World last hours. I know, that's the problem. Douglas Adams wrote it. Okay, well, I'd like Douglas Adams, Deech. I like his stuff generally. You're afraid to install Gentoo because you have Pentium dual core 3 gig and it can't handle. Yeah, it had taken an awful long time. I must admit, I didn't put it on proper hardware. I did Gentoo installs in VirtualBox. Stephen Essen, that's the first time you've heard anything about Slackware. Well, I did a video on Slackware not so long ago. Go and take a look. It's a great distro. Up until literally a couple of months ago, I have always had a version of Slackware running on one of my ThinkPads. It's as solid as Debian, but its development cycle is glacial. That's wrong. Let me qualify that a little bit. You have the released version of Slackware, and then you have Slackware Current. And Slackware Current is the rolling release of what will eventually become Slackware Stable. But the last Slackware Stable release was 2016, so it's been a little while. So it makes Debian's release cycle look, like Speedy Gonzales. It's worth trying. It's worth getting to know. They used to say, if you run Ubuntu, you learn Ubuntu. If you run Slackware, you learn Linux. There's something to that, although Slackware has become one on its own now. It's almost become its own thing. It doesn't follow anything else. It's not System D. It certainly isn't. It uses its own particular modified System V init system beforehand. It's very BSD style. Everything's organised startup by modifying startup scripts. It doesn't have dependency checking built in, which worries some people, but it needn't worry you, because if you do a full install, it comes with most of the libraries that you'll need. And there's a website called Slackbills where you can get just about every piece of software that you can imagine. And there's all sorts of pieces of helper software to help you manage it. It's great. Right, so LXQT, LXDE, is LXDE being replaced? Yeah, it is. It's being replaced for LXQT, I believe, in time. At the moment, we still have both. I'm quite sorry about that, for a number of reasons, really. I like the look, the GTK look. I prefer it over the QT look. So I preferred the look of LXDE, but things move on, so hey-ho. Sorry, what Metzel, OldTechBloke, 4 years? Sorry, I missed your area thing. I got a Pentium dual core 1.7 gig. Then we've gone on to 4 years. You'll have to expand on that. Apparently Arch hates LXDE. Does it? I never knew that. Right. Any other questions, guys? Because we've just passed the 1 hour limit. So unless there's anything else going to come up, I'll kill the stream in a couple of minutes. It seems to have been quite busy. We've still got well over 90 on the stream, which is pretty amazing, to be honest. Absolutely amazing. Phoenix OS for kids on a Raspberry Pi. And Metzel, you say you prefer GTK as well. I don't know what it is about GTK in QT. I think it goes all the way back to when I started, and it was all about, do you choose GNOME 2 or XFCE, or do you choose KDE? And I like the look and feel of GTK as opposed to QT, and that's still my preference. Arch Linux plus Xmonad, that's great, absolutely great. I've got it on here. Xmonad works really well. Old Tech, what are you saying, Darren? Quick question. A while back, you had family that was sick. How did it turn out? Thank you very much for asking. Yeah, I think I mentioned it on the last stream. We had a bit of a horrible time, actually. My mum is in her mid-80s, and she had a massive heart attack. And she survived it, but she was in and out of hospital. She had several little heart attacks afterwards. And while she was in hospital, she got this virus thing that's going around as well. So to survive that when you're in your mid-80s is not an easy thing to do. But she is at home now, and she's on the mend, I'm pleased to say. So thank you for asking. Yeah, that was fast. That's the fastest hour. But guys, it's just got 5 o'clock. There's a few of you saying bye-bye. So I'm going to say bye-bye now, and I'm going to get myself a takeaway curry and enjoy my Saturday evening. It's pitch black outside. Temperature's dropped to 4 degrees. It's pouring with rain. So I think it's a case of curling up inside and watching a decent film. Rob, you're saying if you want to give Wayland a try, check out Sway. It's an i3 clone, easy to install, and kick the tyres. I may well do that. Oh, Stephen S9, what have you got in the pipeline? The normal things, loads, but I haven't decided what's next. I haven't even decided what's tomorrow, because I will do a pre-recorded video tomorrow, guys. But I'm going to call it a day for now. Thanks very much for joining me on the stream, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm going to bring up the thumbnail and kill the stream in a second. And I will see you on another live stream before Christmas, but it will probably be pre-recorded content before then. So, bye everyone.